Desecrating and burning the Holy Quran in Sweden has once again raised a political storm of condemnation, but also of justification, if not outright approval. Such acts are protected by law, top Swedish and EU officials declared. But why aren't the rights of those who oppose Western agendas, colonialism, imperialism, Zionism, and military interventions equally protected by law? The Palestine boycott movement, BDS for example, is constantly fighting in Western societies and institutions for the right to use certain language or merely challenge, although non-violently, Israeli occupation and apartheid. Iranian media offices were shut down in some Western countries, and various Western-operated satellites removed Iranian Press TV, Lebanon's Al-Manar TV, and other anti-Israeli occupation media outlets from their lineups. Thousands of Palestinian activists, including this guy over here, have been banned or censored on Western social media platforms for daring to criticize Israeli war crimes in Palestine. As soon as the Russia-Ukraine war began, Western governments were asked to completely block Russia Today and other Russian media channels from operating in Western capitals, leading to the shutting down of offices, social media channels, removal from Google and other search engines, and so forth and so on. In February 2022, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said, "We will ban the Kremlin's media machine in the EU." But for some reason, all of these censorships somehow morally and legally fit into Western agenda. But why is it that when it comes to the right to insult Muslims, this right becomes so cherished, so sacred in the view of Western governments and law? And why burn the Quran now? Well, it is sacred simply because Islamophobia exists at the highest levels of government throughout the West. Western lawmakers and politicians may argue that the law protects the right of individuals to burn the Quran, but deep down, sometimes right on the surface, Europe's ruling elites share the view of those who burn the Quran or desecrate Islamic symbols. Such hate is often blamed by many of us on the far right, but that is only part of the story. Expectedly, once again, Muslims react by protesting in mass, storm Western embassies, and burn Western countries' flags. And when this happens, the very Western political and intellectual circles that permitted or encouraged hate speech in the first place take to the stage, juxtaposing with unmistakable triumph the West's democracy and tolerance with Islam's intolerance and authoritarianism. How about the timing? Notice how the Quran is often burned when there is a crisis in the West. And whenever there is a crisis, the West is ready to get the people into some kind of a public frenzy and anti-Muslim feelings. In the past, whenever Christendom descended into chaos, civil wars, and revolutions, European kings, with the support of the church, would mount one crusade after another in the name of freeing the captive Holy Land from the hordes of the heathens and the Mohammedans. More recently, when the US invaded Iraq or wanted to distract from its splendid failures in Iraq, Afghanistan, and everywhere else in the Muslim world, Western provocateurs would rush to the streets to burn the Quran, or would insult and ridicule Prophet Muhammad in their newspapers and their magazines. But what crisis is the West now trying to distract from? In one word, Ukraine. And the global paradigm shift underway. NATO is failing to push back or even weaken Russia. The much touted Ukrainian counteroffensive, featuring the most modern weapons the West has to offer, is a flop at best or complete disaster at worst. Moreover, the cracks of division among NATO and Western countries are bigger than ever and are widening by the day. The Wagner mutiny in Rostov, which ignited hope among Western governments and elites that Russia's President Vladimir Putin can be taken down from within, has completely failed. In fact, it has backfired so badly as the mercenary group has been exiled to Belarus and is now stationed at NATO's own doorsteps. Worse, Arabs, Muslims, and countries from across the global south are moving even closer to Moscow and Beijing, Algeria has recently signed a major cooperation agreement with Russia, thus strengthening their influence over the gas market. And a host of nations are lining up to join BRICS. In the face of this strategic failure and the complete moral, political, and military collapse of the West, a supposed lunatic appears before a mosque in Stockholm with a supposed altruistic mission of burning the holy book of 1.8 billion Muslims. A Western media fanfare immediately follows. But this individual and others like him has little interest in defending the freedom of speech. His is a diversion strategy, and at some level, the actual orchestrators are not lunatics but clever men with high-paying jobs and political agendas. Indeed, these blasphemous acts are part and parcel of a larger Western agenda, the gist of which is that the West is democratic, tolerant, and essentially good, and the rest are undemocratic, barbaric, and essentially wicked. This false maxim is just another take on European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell when he said last November that Europe is a garden, while most of the rest of the world is a jungle. The fact that Russia has recently passed laws criminalizing the burning of the Quran indicate that Moscow, like others, also understand that the issue is purely political. Because it is. This was Ramzi Baroud with One Take. Thanks for tuning in.